Good day everyone. The assigned topic for our group is all about 1973 Constitution and 1987 Freedom Constitution. But before we start, let me introduce myself and my group mate. My name is Jonas Clarence Oiloreg and these are my group mate Atencia, Brian Nepomuceno, Rodriguez, Cobales, and Enciso. Okay, let's start. So, let me give a brief summary of 1973 Philippines Constitution. Philippines renounced war as instrument of national policy, adopt the general accepted principle of international law as part of the law of the land, adheres to the policy of peace, equality, justice, freedom, cooperation, and amity with all nations. Sinasabi dito na ang Pilipinas ay handang talikuran ang digmaan bilang instrumento ng pambansang patakaran at para masunod ang patakaran tulad ng kapayapaan, kalayaan at pagkapantay-pantay sa anumang bansa. The 1973 Philippines Constitution draft presented to President Marcos by 1971 Constitutional Convention on December 1, 1972. Deemed ratified by citizen assemblies held from January 10 to 15, 1973. Proclaimed in force by proclamation by President Marcos on January 17, 1973. On December 1, 1972, itinanghal si President Marcos bilang 1971 Constitutional Convention, and from January 10 to 15, 1973, pinahayag ni Marcos ang may bisa sa pamamagitan ng pagpapahayag. 1973 Constitution. The 1973 Constitution, composed of preamble and 17 articles, provide for the shift from presidential to parliamentary system of government. The Constitution best of the legislative power in the Nation Assembly. A Prime Minister is elected from among the members of the National Assembly and serve as the head of government and commander-in-chief of the Philippines Armed Forces. Noong 1973 daw po ay nagko-compose ng 17 article na nagsishift sa sistema ng gobyerno, which is presidential to parliamentary. That's all my report. Thank you. Let's proceed to Ms. Enciso.
1973 Constitution. 1965 Ferdinand Marcos elected as the president. Ferdinand Marcos is inaugurated to his first term as the 10th President of the Philippines on December 30, 1965. 1967, Philippine Congress passed the resolution calling for the Constitutional Convention. Isang referendum na konstitusyon ang idinaw sa Pilipinas noong Nobyembre 14, 1967 at noong Marso 16, 1967, nagpapasyahan ng Kongreso na ang isang kombinasyong konstitusyonal ay ihahalal sa 1971 bilang paghahanda para sa halalan sa dalawang sugo na konstitusyon na ipamungkahi ng una. 1969, Marcos won the election. Pangulong Marcos, siya ang huling pangulo ng buong kasaysayan ng elektoral ng Pilipinas na tumakbo at nanalo ng dalawang termino bilang Pangulo ng Pilipinas. November 20, 1970, election of delegates to the Constitutional Convention. Former Philippines Presidential Carlos P. Garcia was sworn in as the President of the Constitutional Convention on June 1, 1971. However, he died 13 days after taking oath. Former President Josgado Macapagal replaced Garcia. President Marcos signed the Proclamation Number 1081 on September 21, 1970, placing the Philippines under martial law. Ilang delegado ng konstitusyon ang ilinigay sa likod ng mga rehas at ang iba naman ay kusang loob na pinatapon. pagiging diktador ni Marcos, bumaling ang direksyon ng kombinasyon at nagdeklara ng ilang probisyon ng konstitusyon. Huling draft ay pinagtibay ng conversion noong November 29, 1972. Ito ay pinagtibay na proklama ng Pangulong Marcos noong Enero 17, 1973 sa gitna ng makalawakang protesta ng kontrobersya. Sa proklamasyon ng isang bagong konstitusyon, ang panguluhang anyo ng pamahalaan ay binagos sa isang binagong parlementaryong anyo. Legislative. The legislative branch is made up of the House and Senate, known collectively as the Congress. Among the powers, the legislative branch is make all laws, declare wars, regulates interests and foreign commerce, and controls taxing and spending policy. Executive. Executive powers implies a central authority to control administration and manage the various activities within the nation. That's all my report, and let's proceed, Mr. Joshua Rodriguez.
1973 Constitution Authorization. 1976 Citizen Assemblies once again decide to allow the continuation of martial law. 1980 Retirement age of member of the judiciary was extended to 70 years. 1981 Parliamentary system was modified to French style, semi-presidential. 1984 The Executive Committee was abolished and the position of the Vice President was restored. The 1980s situation was very turbulent. August 1983, Benigno Aquino Jr. was assassinated. Marcos was then forced to hold a snap election. Rebel groups. 1986 EDSA Revolution. February 25, 1986, Corazon Aquino was installed as president. Noong 1986, February 25, naging presidente si Corazon Aquino. 1987 Freedom Constitution. It established a representative democracy with power divided among three separate and independent branches of government: the executive, a bicameral legislature, and judiciary. Was intended as transitional constitution to ensure the democracy and freedom of the people. Provided for an order transfer of power while a constitutional commission was drafting permanent constitutional. Specifies the right of the people to choose their leader or suffrage to election and provide for means in identifying who are qualified to elect and to be elected to office. That's all my report. Let's proceed, Mr. Brian Pomoceno.
1987 Freedom Constitution after martial law. President Corazon Aquino's government had three options regarding the Constitution. The first option is to return to the 1935 Constitution. The second option is to continue to 1973 Constitution. And the last one, be granted the power to make reforms or start anew and break from the vestige of disgraces dictatorship. The Aquino's government decided to make a new constitution that should be truly reflective of the aspirations and ideals of the Filipino people. In 1986, a constitutional convention was created, composed of 48 members appointed by President Aquino from varied backgrounds and presentations. The convention drew up a permanent constitution, largely restoring the setup abolished by Marcos in 1970, but with new ways to keep the president in check, a new reaction to the experience of Marcos' rules. The new constitution was officially adopted on February 2, 1987. That's all my report, and let's proceed, Mr. Cobales.
The Preamble, 1987 Philippine Constitution. This constitution provides that we should establish government which shall conserve and develop our patrimony. We should have to conserve, protect, and renew our environment. Establish the Philippines as a democratic republican state where sovereignty resides in the people and all government authority emanates from them. Allocates government powers among the executive, legislative, and judicial branches of the government. Democratic republican state. Philippines is a democratic country, led by the directly elected president who serves as both and head of state and head of government. Presidents are limited to a single 6-year term of office. It is also a form of government in which the country considers as public matter. Executive branch, headed by the President and his cabinet whom he appoints. President and Vice President are voted at large by a direct vote, serving for a single 6-year term. President is head of state and the chief executive, but his power is limited by significant checks from the two co-equal branches of government. They are responsible for the overall governance of a state. They are also responsible for enforcing and executing laws and made by the legislative branch of government. Papatuloy ni Ana Atencia ang susunod na report.
1987 Constitution Provision. Legislative power resides in a bicameral Congress. Congress may declare war through a 2/3 vote in both upper and lower houses. Power of legislation is subject to an executive check. Power to veto by the President, but Congress may override the veto by a 2/3 vote of both houses voting separately. Ibig sabihin ay ang Kongreso ay maaaring magdeklara ng digmaan sa pamamagitan ng 2/3 vote sa parehong mataas at mababang kapulungan. At ang kapangyarihan ng batas ay napapailalim sa isang executive check. Ngunit maaaring i-override ng Kongreso ang veto sa pamamagitan ng 2/3 vote ng parehong kapulungan na bumoto ng hiwalay. A Judicial System Court. Supreme Court and lower courts as created by law is a 15-member court appointed by the President without need to be confirmed by the Congress. Oversees the functioning and administration of the lower courts and their personnel. The appointment of the President makes is limited to the list of the nominees, provided by the constitutionally specified by the Judicial and Bar Council. May hear on appeal any cases dealing with the constitutionality of any law, treaty, or decree of the government, where the penalty is sufficiently grave involving the government and international officials. Ang ibig sabihin ay ito ay isang may 15 miyembrong ng hukuman na hinirang ng Pangulo nang hindi kailangang kumpirmahin ng Kongreso. At ang paghirang ng ginawa ng Pangulo ay limitado sa listahan ng mga konstitusyon na tinukoy ng Hudikatura at Bar Council. At maaring marinig sa apela apilang anumang mga kaso pakikitungo sa konstitusyon ng anumang batas, kasunduan o kautusan ng pamahalaan kung saan ang parusa ay sapat na libingan kinasasangkutan ng mga opisyal ng gobyerno at internasyonal. 3. Independent Constitutional Commission, Civil Service Commission, as central in charge of government personnel, Commission on Elections, mandated to enforce and administer all elections laws and regulations. Commission on Audit, examines all funds, transaction, and property accounts of the government and its agency. The 3 ways which the constitutional can be amended, all requiring ratification by the majority vote in a national referendum. A Constituent Assembly. The Constituent Assembly is a term describing one of the 3 methods by which amendments to the 1987 Constitution of the Philippines may be proposed. People's Initiative. The affiliation, also known as PI, also refers to the act allowed by the law given right of the Filipino people of directly initialing statutes or calling for referendums on both the national and local government level. And the Constitutional Convention. In the Philippines, a constitutional convention is one of the 3 ways to amend the Constitution of the Philippines. And this is the last part of our report, that all about 1973 Constitution and 1987 Freedom Constitution. And again, this is a Group 4 of BSCA 1A1. Thank you.